my name is Don, and this is my channel. The name Desert Mofo comes from the fact that I live in the desert, and I want to start doing some motorcycle photography. I already have a small photography business that's not motorcycle related, so I'm not new to photography, but I will be new to motorcycle photography. And so on this channel I plan on doing some moto vlogging and some sort of learn with me videos as well. Some background: this is my very first motorcycle. This is a 2019 Harley Davidson Iron 883. It's one of the Sportster line, and I think that people are saying that they are now calling it the Street line, but it's a Sportster. In any case, I started riding motorcycles back in November, and by starting to ride motorcycles, I mean I learned how to make one move back in November. I was visiting a friend of mine out in Nicaragua, and he had a little motorcycle, and one day he asked me if I wanted to learn how to ride. And even though I had never in the past had any sort of interest in riding motorcycles, I do enjoy learning new things. So when I had the opportunity to learn something, I went ahead and took it. I figured, you know, it doesn't hurt to learn how to ride a motorcycle. It isn't as if I had to go out and start using one as my daily commuter after learning. So anyway, I hopped on the bike. It was a 125cc Skyler. I do not know if they sell those in the United States. I don't think they do. And it was just so much fun that I couldn't believe it, because I never thought that riding a motorcycle would be all that interesting. I always thought that Harleys looked cool and sounded cool, but I never had any interest in actually riding one. But once I hopped on a motorcycle, I was just in love. I mean, I couldn't stop thinking about whether or not I would end up getting a motorcycle at some point, and I thought that was a good sign that I probably do want a motorcycle. Anyway, so here I am. This is one of the parking lots I like to come out to. Every time I ride, I try to get a little bit of practice in, some low-speed maneuvers. And if you guys watch I'm Desert Mofo. If you guys watch any Moto Jitsu, then you'll know that practice is one of those things that can really make you a good rider. A lot of folks have ridden without ever falling, and as Greg says, or Fast Eddie says, just because you've never fallen on your bike and you've been riding for many years doesn't mean you're actually a skilled rider. So personally, I want to increase my skill level so that I feel like I'm in control in case anything happens. So one of the first things I like to practice is emergency braking. Still skidding more than I want to, and I have the Moto Jitsu book coming in on Sunday, which will give me all the official distances and such. I already have a measuring tape and some cones, so I will be able to start checking my distance in the future. But for now, I'm just getting out here and practicing stopping as much or as quickly as I can without worrying about numbers too much. but I do plan on making sure that I'm stopping within the 18 feet or whatever it was that you need to be able to for, I think, white belt. And just because I'm short on time today, I'm just going to do a few of these. I'm going to do a little bit of low-speed maneuvers. I don't have much battery, and I've got a food delivery coming. Today's Friday, and I had to work all day, so... Ooh, they got motorcycle parking. Nice. I never paid attention to that when I came here before. All right, so let's get over to one of the more smooth areas. And a little bit of shade, maybe. And let's see. All right, this looks pretty good. Trying to turn my head and body and get the bike loomed enough to turn tightly. Okay. Whew. That one was getting a little out of control. Back over here. All right. Alright, so I think my battery and time is kind of going, so I'm going to take you guys over to this other little park that's right across the street from here that I really like because they've got these peacocks and other wildlife running around. There we go, there's one. This is the main public library for the city of Glendale. And it's right adjacent to what's called Saguaro Ranch Park, and it's a historic ranch. And I think that's where mainly all the animals come from. There we go, we got some more over there. There have been a bunch of mamas with their babies when I've been coming in the past. Well, not much luck today. Now that I think I finally got my mic working, I think I'm going to be out of luck when it comes to the little babies. Just gonna go drive around the neighborhood a little bit. Hold you a little. Go, there's the other park. It's got a little dog park area. That's another parking lot that I go into once in a while. Sometimes it's just too busy though. Today is hot as fuck, so there's not quite so many people over in the park. But a lot of times that parking lot fills up way faster than the other one. Gonna go find a little abandoned area, or not abandoned, I'm gonna go find a little quiet area with some shade to pull the bike over so I can check on the battery and see how much time I got left on this thing. Never trust that anyone's gonna yield. If I learned anything from watching the Dan the Fireman videos, it was never trust an intersection, or that cars are gonna do what they're supposed to. So if you are from Arizona, then I live out in Glendale. Used to be a pretty rural area, and not so much now. But it's an older part of Arizona. If you are not from Arizona, then I'm basically living in a suburb of Phoenix, which is why a lot of times I'll just tell people I live in Phoenix if I know they don't know anything about Arizona. Alright, hopefully I don't annoy anyone with me stopping my bike over here. Okay, cool. Still got a fair amount of battery left. Let's check my phone, see if my groceries are delivered or if they're still shopping. All right, cool. So I got a little bit more time. Throw my phone back in my pocket. Ugh. Let's go see the horses. How's that sound? All right, so this is my, like I said before, this is my first motorcycle. And I figure while I am riding up to where the horses are located, I'll kind of go through my normal buying process for vehicles, whether they're cars, motorcycles, whatever. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're buying it from a dealership, this is the strategy I use, and that has worked for me for a few different vehicles I've bought now. I used to buy used all the time, never had good luck with used vehicles, and so then I switched over to new. This bike, though, does happen to be a used Harley, just because I got a much better deal on it than I was anticipating, and it only had about 500 miles on it. So I felt like it wasn't really that used. In any case, this is what I like to do when I'm buying a vehicle. First things first, figure out what vehicle you want, what trim, all that kind of stuff. Figure out exactly what it is you want. Now, Then figure out what dealership you'd like to buy it from. Personally, I like to make sure that the dealership is somewhat close to me in case I'm going to have the servicing done there, or if I need parts, anything like that. And so with that, I'll start with that particular dealership that I actually want to buy the vehicle from, and I will go do my test rides, all that kind of stuff. And once I'm really positive about what vehicle I want, what trim, all that sort of stuff, then from my house, I will contact the internet sales department of that dealership and ask for an out-the-door price on the vehicle that I know I want to get. Okay? Once you get that out-the-door price, tax, title, license, every little thing, out-the-door price for that vehicle, I take that quote and I'll send it to a second dealership, which we will call dealership B. Okay? Now, once that dealership comes back with a quote, because obviously you're going to ask them, hey, I just got this quote and I was wondering if you guys could beat it, or if I'm just getting a good deal. Typically, the second dealership will always beat the first dealership's price. So you take that quote from dealership B and you send that quote from dealership B to a third dealership, which I will call dealership C. And you send that quote to dealership C and you say, hey, I just got this quote on a such and such, such and such. I was wondering if you guys could beat it. And so far, my experience has been twice the third dealership beat that second dealership's price, and one time only it did not, and that was with the motorcycle. But in cars, my last two cars that we bought new, all of them, the third dealership beat the second dealership. So what you do after that is you take your third quote and you send it over to the very first dealership that you want to buy that thing at, and you say, hey, so I don't know why your guys' price is so much higher than this other quote that I just got. Is this something you guys can beat, or can you match it and throw in some perks? Like, what are your feelings here? And so in the case of my truck, for instance, when I got my Tacoma, that they couldn't beat the price on that last dealership, on dealership 3. So what they did was they matched the price, and they also threw in 3 or 4 free oil changes. They threw in a dash cover, which in Arizona actually is really useful because the sun splits a lot of dashes out here after a while. So I was able to get the truck that I wanted at a great price at a dealership near me. And the same thing happened with my ex-wife's car, and you know, I did the same thing with this motorcycle here, where I just got 3 different dealership quotes and was able to kind of get it down as low as I thought it was possible. And yeah, so that's how I got a good deal on this. Now, I actually was going to buy a 2021 new, but after negotiating all the pricing, the folks at the dealership were like, well, you know, we also have this other bike that is even cheaper, and it's last year's model year. It's got 500 miles on it. Still has nearly 2 years of the warranty on it. So I opted to go with this one because it was even cheaper, and it was exactly what I was looking for anyway. So yeah, that's how I like to approach buying my vehicles, because I never want to get trapped at a dealership. Anytime anyone goes to a dealership and buys a vehicle at the dealership, I pity them, because they jerk you around, they keep you there forever. It just ends up being a big hassle, in my opinion. So I would much rather do everything online, because when I go do my test drives, they're always going to try to get you to buy something today. They're always going to be like, what can we do to make you buy today? Blah, blah, blah. You know, and I just tell them straight up, like, look, I'm not buying today. I just want to test drive, see what it is I want, and then I'll get back to you guys if I'm going to buy something. Ooh, let's see. All right. And I always just do the shopping online. So headache-free. All right. right, so we're getting ready to get to where the horses are at. This isn't that far from my house. I think it's like 5-10 minutes from my house. It's crazy because Glendale is now, you know, it's not the farm town it once was. So it's really interesting that you can just drive to certain neighborhoods out here and there's still kind of holdovers from the farm days of Glendale. And you can see things like horses, goats, chickens. I think at one point someone had like alpacas or something. I think I'm going to try to get a picture over here. Look at that sunset lighting. The horses in the background. This could be cool. Ooh, ah. At 4 o'clock today, it was 109 degrees. I think that when I left the house, it was probably 104, something to that effect. But god damn, when you're sitting on top of this air-cooled motorcycle and you stop for a minute or two, it just bakes you. And then even when you get off, I mean, I'm wearing full gear, so I've got, you know, jacket, helmet, gloves, jeans, boots, like everything. Let's see what we got in here. I think they had goats. Let's see. We don't show them, or you don't see them. Alright guys, so why did I choose the Harley Sportster Iron 883? I think I'll do a list video about this, but for now I'll give you guys a summary, and you might have to hear it again when I do the list video. But essentially, because I do photography, I wanted a bike that looked good. And when I was looking at the different options available to me, the Harleys just looked the best. And specifically, the Iron 883 looked the best. Now, a lot of folks were telling me, hey, don't get the 883. You're going to outgrow it quickly. Go with the 1200. Okay? And then on the flip side, people were saying, hey, don't go over 600 cc's, or it's going to be too much bike for you when you're brand new. And I think the difference is that, you know, the 600 cc thing applies more to sport bikes and naked bikes, etc. And then the Harleys are a little bit of a different animal, just because of the way they're set up. So personally, I don't care about speed. So when someone says, you know, the 1200 cc, that thing's gonna let you ride in the highway easier and blah blah blah, I think to myself, well, I mean, I don't plan on doing any long trips with it per se. I want the option to go somewhere, but it's not going to be the primary function of this bike. Primarily, I'm going to drive it around town, looking for cool spots to take photos, I work with a fair number of models at the moment with my other photography, so I figured maybe I'll bring some folks around and, you know, do some stage photo shoots with the bike as well. And yeah, so looks were really important to me when it came to the bike. And, you know, I looked at the Hondas and the Kawasaki's, all the different metric cruisers. Really, I just did not like the way they looked. They just didn't appeal to me. And basically, I kept coming back to Harley because of the look and the sound. I mean, you just can't beat the sound of a Harley. And so I was choosing a cruiser because, again, I don't really care about speed, you know. I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm not that young either. And so the appeal of going fast to me just isn't there. I know a lot of people, they get on a motorcycle, they just think, man, how fast can this thing go? You know, let's see if I can get it over 100. Let's see if I can get it over 150. And I don't know, it doesn't appeal to me, you know. The reason I ride has nothing to do with speed. And so when someone starts tossing out all these metrics about 0 to 60 speeds and lean angles and you know, weight to power ratios and stuff, for me it's all beside the point. The performance of the bike really has very little to do with my decision making when it comes to riding a motorcycle. It's not why I ride. I ride because it's fun. You know, just getting on the bike, feeling the wind around me, coming down the road. I feel like I see things like I'm really in it versus when I'm in a car and I'm looking through the windshield. And I know when I've got the helmet on, it's sort of a similar thing, I suppose, but it really isn't. I mean, it's hard to explain why it isn't unless you've ridden a motorcycle, but it just is different. You definitely feel more in the environment than in a vehicle when you're on the motorcycle. So, yeah, I mean, everyone's giving these metrics that just, I think, sound good for YouTube, and they give all the forum people and the Facebook people something to fight about, and to prove, quote unquote, that, you know, one bike is shitty or not. And for me, it's all about the experience. Like, what experience are you going for on the bike? If you're going for speed and handling, then all those fucking statistics matter, you know? But if you're just having a good time on the bike, you know, then other things start to matter, like how it sounds. Like, I'm riding around right now, and I'm just tickled pink with how the bike sounds. You know, the rumble. And when I get off the bike and take photos, I just love the way it looks, you know. I peek out my window. I mean, I park this thing right next to my house, and I peek out the window sometimes and just see it sitting out there and can't help but smile because it's just, to me, it's beautiful. And I don't get that same feeling when I look at a sport bike. You know, I mean, honestly, I think most sport bikes look like bugs. Some of them look like praying mantises. Some of them look like beetles. But they all basically look like bugs. And when you rev their engines, they basically sound like a bug. You know? And if they don't sound like a bug, sometimes they just sound like you've got those little wire spokes and someone put a playing card in the wheel. And it's just not something that appeals to me. I wouldn't want to ride around on a bike that I either didn't really hear, or the only thing I heard was like a fucking buzzing sound the whole time. And I think the same goes for folks who like to do off-road stuff. You know, I mean, 0 to 60 and, you know, how many cc's it is and all this kind of stuff. If you're, you know, if you're hopping on a dirt bike and you're hitting trails and climbing rocks and doing all kinds of stuff, well, I mean, you're not going to give a fuck that the bike has a, you know, slow 0 to 60 speed, you know. Oh, so okay, let me go back and talk about more within the Harley line why I decided to go with the iron. So initially I saw the irons and I really loved them, but then I was seeing things like the 48 Special and the State 48 and some of the other Sportsters that also looked really cool, and I just loved some of the 48 stuff with the shape of the tank and the colors that they were choosing. Like there was this kind of reddish orange color I really liked, and everything was blacked out just like the iron. But at the end of the day, the tank was just a little bit too small. I mean, a Sportster tank is already not the biggest tank out there, and the thought of having an even smaller tank it just really got to me. Plus they were a bit more expensive, and I was trying to go as cheap as I can because Harleys do have a premium on them. They're not huge. Like a lot of people try to make it sound like Harleys are so much more expensive than all the other bikes out there, but I can tell you, I was just doing some shopping for motorcycles, and you know, I didn't find them to be that much more expensive than the competition. And when you compare styling, there really just is no choice, at least for me. The styling of the other bikes just wasn't even close to being as good looking. And I did consider the 1200s. I mean, I kept hearing it over and over and over again. Don't get the 883, go get the 1200. Don't get the 883, get the 1200. And so I did think hard about it. Because, you know, I've been wrong before, and I'm sure at some point I'll be wrong again. So I thought, let me give these 1200s some consideration. But at the end of the day, they just were too ugly. I really hate the retro paint job they put on them. So if I ended up getting a 1200, I'd also end up having to hire someone to paint it. And so that boosts the cost even more. So I just couldn't do it. I mean, most of the 1200s were just, you know, like I said, just ugly. They did these weird, like, 70s pinstripes or something on them that just were horrible to me. I think they were like bowling alley stripes or something. In any case, it was ugly. I'm sure a lot of folks liked it, but I'm not one of them. But the irons were just beautiful. You know, the tank was small, like a Sportster's tank is, but it wasn't the smallest tank. As you can see, I'm already ready for gas again. I mean, I've only owned this thing, I think, 4 weeks now, and I've had to fill it up 3 times. And this next time will be my 4th time filling it up. So I couldn't imagine what it would be like riding around with an even smaller tank. Because what I'm doing right now is primarily neighborhood riding. You know, I'm not doing any kind of long hauls or anything. I'm just kind of putzing around the neighborhoods, doing some slow speed drills,